believe that ghosts living among humans exist? Let me rephrase. Do you believe that a person can pass and then come back to live a normal life among the living? Well, I've heard countless stories supporting this claim, but I never really believed until I had a first-hand experience. Let me tell you a short story. Onome was a very beautiful woman who lived in our community. She was not only beautiful, she was hardworking, and as a result of her hard work, she had built a good business for herself. She had a mini supermarket, the biggest in our community back then, and she even had a car, a luxury many could not afford, and lived in a house she had built herself. For her age and being a woman, she was really doing well. But there was just one problem. Onome had no husband, or even a man that wanted to marry her. From the beginning, it was not so. When Onome was younger, she had so many suitors, but she rejected them all, insisting she was not ready to settle down. She wanted to focus on building her business before settling down. Not that I think it's a bad idea. Life just played a trick on her. Her mother advised her against that idea, but Onome did not listen. Mama, I don't want one man to tie me down. I want to build a good life for myself. I want to be independent, she would say. Onome's mother did not buy this. My child, what you should pray for is a man that truly loves you and supports your dream. If you find that kind of man, you will achieve everything you want to achieve. A woman's time passes, and time waits for no one, except you have no interest in getting married. But if you have future plans to settle down, then this is the time to make that decision, her mother said. But all her words fell on deaf ears. Onome, while pursuing the growth of her business, lost track of time, and the years slipped away quietly. By the time she was ready to settle down, there was no serious relationship. And somewhere along the line, the male attention she got slowly faded. What started as a minor concern soon became ignoring worry. And as the days turned into years, her worry soon turned into desperation. Onome was the third child in a family of 9. Her mother, in her quest for a male child, had given birth to 8 girls before finally having a boy, who happened to be the last child. All her sisters were married and now had children, except for her. Her mother did not make it easy for her. She called her every morning just to ask her when she was going to bring a man home. Onome, you have clocked 35 and still you have not seen any man. Look at your sisters. They are all married. Is it until you reach menopause that you will settle down? She asked every time. The pressure did not stop with just words. Onome's mother, desperate to see her daughter married, took her to different prayer houses. They performed uncountable deliverance sessions. She even went for body cleansing at the river in the midnight, all in a bid to get a husband. But nothing worked. There was no man in view. Onome became really sad, but she put on a brave front. Each time you saw her, she talked and laughed as if she had no care in the world. But each time she went behind closed doors, she cried until she fell asleep. As the years slipped by, Onome's desperation grew. She no longer prayed for the perfect man. She prayed for any man at all, whether he was handsome or not, wealthy or not, tall, short, any man who would have her. She was willing to settle for anything she could get, as long as he was a man. She made herself an easy target for men. They swooped in like vultures, taking and taking from her, but none was willing to settle down with her. They all thought she was too old to marry. People started talking. She had heard different versions of her story on the lips of people. People that would smile in her face, but went behind her to gossip. Some even said she had a spiritual husband, and the husband prevented her from having a real one, while some pitied her predicament. Others mocked her. This further strengthened her resolve to settle for whatever she could find. One day, something extraordinary happened in Onome's life, a moment she had almost given up on. A handsome man strolled into her supermarket, and from the instant he laid eyes on her, he was captivated by her beauty and drawn to her gentle nature. With a warm smile, he showered her with compliments, praising her grace and charm. Onome's heart swelled with joy. After so many years of feeling invisible, here was a man who saw her, who truly found her desirable. She had spent so long chasing after men, yearning for their attention, that it felt like a dream come true to finally be the one who was being pursued. The man introduced himself as Emma, and from that day they were inseparable. Emma and Onome quickly struck up a friendship that blossomed into something deeper. They spent more and more time together, talking for hours and sharing their dreams. Emma wasn't wealthy, but Onome did not care. She had more than enough to support them both. And besides, she was living in a state of bliss. For the first time in a long time, she felt loved, truly loved, and it seemed Emma adored her with all his heart. He treated her like a queen, and she soaked up his affection like sunlight. When Emma began to speak of marriage, Onome could hardly contain her excitement. She rushed to introduce him to her family, who were just as thrilled as she was. Her mother especially was overjoyed. She believed all the prayers, the midnight rituals, and the deliverance sessions had finally worked. Wedding preparations began almost immediately, and the whole family was caught up in the whirlwind of planning. But then came a surprising twist. Emma revealed that he had no family. Onome's father, ever cautious, found this hard to believe. "How can this be?" he asked, suspicion clouding his eyes. Emma explained with a somber tone. "My parents died when I was very young, and I have no siblings. My father's only brother left the country over 15 years ago, and I haven't heard of him since then." The story did not sit well with Onome's parents. Something about it seemed off, but Onome, blinded by love and the desire to finally settle down, brushed aside her concerns. She saw their worry as unnecessary, a hindrance to her happiness, and so reluctantly, they let the matter rest. They did not want to spoil their daughter's newfound joy, even though something deep inside them whispered that this too good to be true situation might not be as perfect as it seemed. Her friend Adaku tried to talk her out of marrying Emma. "You don't know anything about this man. What if he already has a family somewhere and just wants your money?" she asked, truly concerned. But all their talk only angered Onome. "While I was crying and praying and going through endless rituals, none of you said anything. Now I've found someone who loves me and makes me happy. Now all of you have turned to marriage counselors. Please, everyone should leave me alone, she replied angrily. In just a few short months after their meeting, Onome found herself walking down the aisle, her heart bursting with joy. She was finally somebody's wife, a title she had longed for, even though she had quietly financed every part of the wedding. Emma's financial situation was far from stable. He had no job or any source of livelihood. But that did not bother Onome. Her love for him was deep, and she was determined to see them both succeed. After the wedding, Onome decided to help Emma start a business of his own. "What kind of business can you do?" she asked, eager to support him in any way she could. To her surprise, Emma's answer was unexpected. He wanted to be a commercial bike rider, an Okada man. Onome was taken aback. Emma, she protested gently. "Our status is above that kind of work. There must be something else you'd like to do, something more fitting. Just name it, and we can make it happen." But Emma was firm in his decision. He insisted on the Okada business. And seeing how much it meant to him, Onome relented. She bought him a brand new bike, wanting to satisfy his wishes and keep him happy. Soon, their lives fell into a comfortable routine. Emma would wake up before dawn, quietly making breakfast for his wife before heading out for his morning rounds. By the time Onome woke up, he was already gone, but he always made a point to stop by the house supermarket in the afternoon, just to see her and bring her small gifts. At night, they would talk about their day, sharing stories and laughter, and often ending the evening with a passion that only deepened their bond. Onome had never known such happiness. Her heart was full, and love, she realized, was truly sweet. The community noticed the change in Onome's life. Those who once mocked her, now singing a different tune. "God's time is truly the best," they said, admiring her newfound joy. 2 years later, their happiness reached new heights when Onome and Emma welcomed their first children, twin baby boys. Their joy knew no bounds, and it felt as though all their prayers had been answered at once. For Onome especially, it was as if her entire story had been rewritten. The shame and loneliness she once felt had been replaced with overwhelming joy. To celebrate this blessing, they organized a grand naming ceremony 7 days after the boys were born. The feast was unlike anything the community had seen in years. Guests poured in from near and far, eager to join in the celebration. Onome's mother, well known and respected, had invited all her friends, and Onome's siblings and their husbands were there too, beaming with pride. The air was thick with happiness and laughter, and everyone was genuinely delighted for Onome. The ceremony was unfolding beautifully, filled with laughter, music, and joy. But then something strange happened. From where he sat, one of Onome's sister's husbands, Odafe, found his eyes glued to Emma. There was something about Emma that seemed all too familiar, a face he couldn't shake from his memory. "Who is that man?" he asked his wife, his voice tinged with uncertainty. His wife, caught off guard, remembered that they hadn't attended the wedding because she was heavily pregnant at the time. "That's Emma, Onome's husband. Why do you ask?" she said, noticing the concern etched on his face. Odafe could not take his eyes off Emma. He looks exactly like someone I used to know, he murmured, his brow furrowed in concentration. Come on, honey, his wife replied, trying to dismiss his unease. People look alike sometimes. But Odafe shook his head, his expression growing more intense. People look alike, yes, but not exactly alike in this way. Even twins have differences. This is something else. His wife's curiosity piqued now. Okay, but even if he looks like someone you know, what's the big deal? Odafe leaned in, lowering his voice. That's because the man he looks like is dead. His wife burst into laughter. Odafe, are you trying to say my sister's husband is a dead man? Even I know that's impossible. But Odafe wasn't amused. His gaze remained fixed on Emma, his face serious. There's only one way to find out, he said, pushing back his chair and standing up. Meanwhile, across the room, Emma was growing increasingly uncomfortable. He had never liked large gatherings, and this party was no exception. He had tried to convince Onome and her family to keep the celebration small, but they had insisted on a grand event. Now he felt trapped. The noise and the crowd pressing in on him. He needed to get out. Leaning over to Onome, he whispered, I'll be back, and placed a quick kiss on her cheek before making his way toward the exit. But just as he stood up to leave, he heard a voice call out, Wale! The name hit him like a thunderbolt. Emma froze, his eyes wide with shock. Slowly, he turned to see who had spoken, and his gaze locked with Odafe's. In that instant, the air in the room seemed to still. Emma's expression changed from surprise to something darker, more fearful, and then, before the eyes of everyone present, Wale vanished into thin air. Panic erupted like a storm. Guests screamed and scattered in every direction, knocking over chairs and tables in their frantic rush to escape. Onome, overwhelmed by the sudden chaos and the impossible sight she had just witnessed, screamed and collapsed to the ground. Odafe had been right all along. The man they knew as Emma was not Emma at all. He was Wale, a man who had died 3 years ago in a horrific bike accident. His life was snuffed out on the spot. But how could he be here, now, in the flesh? The revelation left the entire gathering in turmoil, and Onome's world was shattered in an instant. When Onome regained consciousness, she found herself surrounded by her family, their faces pale with shock. Odafe sat nearby, his expression grim, as he told her the same story he had told the others. Onome listened, still dazed, as Odafe explained how he knew Wale. He is the first son of my mother's friend who lives in Kano, Odafe said, his voice heavy with the weight of the discovery. He used to be a bike man, but one day, he had a ghastly accident which took his life on the spot. Onome's father shook his head in disbelief. No wonder he insisted he had no family, he murmured, the pieces of the puzzle finally coming together. Onome's mind raced as she recalled all the strange things she had noticed but never questioned. How Emma avoided crowds, how he never liked to eat in front of anyone. The more she thought about it, the more the tears flowed. Wale had died a sudden painful death. and his spirit refused to rest. He traveled all the way from Kano to Delta States, where he felt no one would ever find him. To confirm the truth, Odafe, Onome, and her twin boys, who were the spitting image of their father, with Onome's parents, made the long journey to Wale's family home in Kano. When they arrived and shared their incredible story, Wale's mother broke down into tears, mourning her son all over again. She showed them photographs of Wale, which Onome recognized immediately as the man she had called her husband. They then took her to his grave, a small quiet place that held the remains of the man she had loved so deeply. Onome sat by the graveside, her heart shattered to pieces. She had lived with a dead man for 2 whole years. Those years had been the happiest of her life, filled with love and laughter, but now it all felt like a cruel joke. She wept bitterly, blaming herself for everything. If only she hadn't been so desperate. If only she had listened to the voice of reason from her parents and friends, maybe she wouldn't be in this nightmare. With a heart torn between regret and the bittersweet memories of the love she had shared with Wale, Onome made a promise to stay in touch with his family for the sake of her sons. She left Kano with a heavy heart. She returned to the community to face the endless gossip that trailed her. Tongues started wagging, and no one wanted to even come close to her or her babies. To make matters worse, the house that had once been filled with warmth and love now felt cold and empty. All of Ima's belongings had disappeared, as if they had never existed. Even his pictures were gone, leaving only the bike she had bought him, the sole reminder that he had been there at all. Unable to bear the memories or the cruel whispers of the community, Onome made a heartbreaking decision. She sold the supermarket she had worked so hard to build, packed her things, and took her boys to a place far away where no one knew her name or her story. She needed a fresh start, a chance to rebuild her life and protect her children. I know you're probably wondering how I came to know this story is really true. That's because I am Onome. Hey lovers, thank you for listening to this story. I'd like you to know that this is totally fiction, but in my country we have heard countless stories about these happenings. If you have experienced this before, please tell us in the comment section. If you're new here, welcome to our community. If you have not done so already, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a big thumbs up. I'll see you in my next video. Bye.